there's been a lot of discussion about how the ACC should treat Notre Dame during this pandemic, and whatever the schedule ends up being. I really think this is the year for the ACC to say, hey, Notre Dame, what do you need? We'll help you in whatever way you need to be helped.
Notre Dame, until they say, hey, we're in for football, they have zero ability to be in the ACC championship game, period.
Well, we're kicking around a lot of different scheduling scenarios too. So in the scenario where you have the two divisions still, yeah, it doesn't work. But there's been crazier ideas floated around.
No, you're crazy. He's crazy. It's crazy. They're not in the league. They're not a part of it. I don't want to hear about it. But our next guest, he was on top of it, man. He knew. I squared, Irish insider, Georgia Tech great, Roddy Jones, back for the victory lap. Let's bring him on. There he is. No hat today, man. He's going front and center. He didn't go with the essential haircut like Big Joe did. Roddy's coming in there. All right, so big man, I apologize to you for the fourth time because you were trying to explain to me last week, and I wasn't buying it, about Notre Dame playing for an ACC championship. But nevertheless, you had something going on, man. You were all over it.
Well, Pack, in a crazy year like 2020, crazy comes out on top. The good thing that's come out of this, though, is the fact that Georgia Tech did not come to take my degrees. That's the good thing, because had I gotten too crazy, they may have had to come and take both of them.
By the way, what are you wearing? Well, it's on your hands back there. You flashed something on us.
Well, it's Georgia Tech Day, so I brought some. I'm reliving the glory days today. I'm wearing the Georgia Tech gloves, baby.
Oh,
let's go!
Nice.
Let's go! These are gloves from the Orange Bowl. You know what else I got? Oh yeah, with the ACC championship jersey. I'm reliving the glory days, baby. That was number 20 coming out.
Hey, you know what? I say it all the time. If you got it, flaunt it. Right? That's just the way it works. Man. If you got it, you can flaunt it.
These are the coolest gloves we had the entire time I was there. And if you flip it over, I'm going to flip this over right there so you can see that Orange Bowl thing.
Nice.
So this was the swag, and I'm one of those guys that holds on to everything, so I've still got it all.
Nice.
By the way, who scored last, C.J. Spiller or Demaryius Thomas in that championship game jersey?
That's a great question that I think you would know the answer to better than me. C.J. Spiller, though, may still be scoring from that game. If I'm not mistaken, we won the game, but C.J. Spiller was the MVP. Yeah. So go figure how that works. I mean, he was fantastic that game. I did tackle him, though. That is my one career tackle was against C.J. Spiller.
Really? Now that is a bar bet. No, that is a bar bet right there.
I kid you not. So my entire career, I played special teams. I'm running down on kickoff team. I make the first guy miss. I'm feeling good about myself. I see the wall. I target one guy. I widen him out, and then I slip underneath. So I'm feeling really good. But then I realize I'm one-on-one with CJ. So what I do is I jump outside. He cuts hard in. I dive at his legs, hit him on the knee. He stumbles for about 5 yards. Nobody else touches him. And then his knee barely grazes the ground, and they call him down. I got credit for the tackle.
No, that's a tackle. Technically, that's a tackle. That counts. Resume.
Exactly.
That's awful.
Exactly.
That's awful. That's absolutely awful. All right.
It shows what happens when you put a running back on kickoff team.
All right. Obviously, we wanted to have the Notre Dame insight that you provided last week here, but I got to ask you, what's your initial reaction to the move by the SEC yesterday to stay in the house and not play these games, Roddy? Especially clean old-fashioned hate.
It's disappointing to me, obviously, because I want to see Georgia Tech. I want to see Clemson, South Carolina. I didn't know that Clemson, South Carolina was the longest-running non-conference rivalry in the country, and now we're not going to have that. So, you want to see those games every single year. I can understand, though, why they would do it, because you're talking about 4 schools in the SEC with non-conference in-state rivalries. The other 10 then have to go find that other team to play. And if the other 10 didn't feel comfortable with that, I can see how the 4 get overridden. So it's obviously disappointing. It's not completely unexpected because nothing is completely unexpected this year. But I certainly am one that loves to see those games, especially in a year like this where you want some sense of normalcy. And honestly, logically, it doesn't make sense that Georgia's going to be able to go play everyone around the Southeast and not play the team that's 70 miles down the road. So, from a logical standpoint, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But when you zoom out and look at the entire league and how they would have had to vote on it, it makes a lot more sense.
But you know what, though, Roddy? And no disrespect, those other 10 teams in that respective league never seem to have a problem finding Mercer and Western Carolina and Marist and the School of the Blind late November, the week prior to all these big rivalry weekends. That never seemed to be an issue for a conference that found teams that I'd never heard of before, and all of a sudden you pay them $1.6 million, and they'd come in and get beat 63-7.
Yeah, well, the big question this year is how many of those teams are going to be playing. Like, we still don't really know the impact down the line in Group of Five, and even more so at the FCS level, on whether or not these teams are going to be able to play during this pandemic from a financial standpoint when they're not getting these money games, or when their testing is going to cost a certain amount. There's just still so much unknown that if you had a bunch of teams that either didn't meet the SEC standards from a medical testing standpoint or from a money game standpoint at the FCS level, weren't playing ball, it was going to be really tough. And that's a challenge that the ACC is going to face too, now that everyone really has to find their plus one.
Well, and I'm gonna step back here for a second on the 4 games in particular. And I said this at the top, Roddy, and I'm gonna mention it here. The fact that these games are not going to be played this year, if there's force majeure in the contracts, or even if there is a contract for these games, right? Because you and I both know that Tech Georgia operated on a handshake for a few years. It was a 1 year to 1 year to 1 year. And there have been contracts in the past, 4, 5, 6-year deals. But here's I'm gonna play pessimistic here for a moment. What I don't want to have happen, and I don't think should happen, and I hope it won't happen, is that the good faith of these 8 athletic directors will continue, where Dan Radakovich and Ray Tanner in the Clemson, South Carolina situation, Todd Stansbury, Greg McGarity, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Scott Strickland, and David Coburn in Florida State, and Mitch Barnhart and Vince Tyree in the Kentucky-Louisville situation. What I don't want to see is that this squabbling over the SEC taking this game out now leads to some fraction of, inconsistency in the series. Because, Mark, I'll share this with you, and Roddy knows this. Georgia Tech went to Clemson twice in order to get Clemson and Georgia in opposite years at Grant Field in order to balance their ticket money and their revenue. And now, by not going to Athens this year, Georgia Tech runs the risk of having Clemson and Georgia back on same years on the road and same years at home. Roddy, that affects the budgets of these institutions. That's going to be a problem. That affects, it could be the same for South Carolina, Clemson. I don't know. I know how Georgia Tech and Georgia were trying to stage things. I don't want the business side and the angst of this cancellation to become a problem in future years.
I agree with you, Wes, and I think Georgia Tech may be the exception in this set of rivalries. When you look at Louisville and Kentucky, Louisville does a pretty good job no matter what of drawing fans, as does Kentucky. When you look at Clemson, South Carolina, obviously, Clemson never has a problem getting people in. Florida State, Florida, that may be one of those where Florida State wants to have, let's say, Miami and Florida opposite, like Georgia Tech does with Georgia and Clemson. So I think that there is the possibility. What I would like to see, as you said, is a good faith negotiation from the SEC saying, hey, we will allow you to continue on the same schedule. We're not going to move this game in Athens to next year so that Georgia Tech gets Clemson and Georgia back on the same track where they're both at home, both away, because it really matters for a school like Georgia Tech when you have the boost in ticket revenue from that game. I mean, that's the game every year that you can count on selling out. And that's part of the reason why I like some of the scheduling stuff that's happened with this 15-game schedule. For example, just talking about Georgia Tech, if you were to get Florida State on the schedule as well in a regular cadence, I don't know if it's every year, but maybe every other year, and you're able to count on them coming to Grant Field every once in a while, then that's another game that is a big revenue boost for Georgia Tech from a ticket sales standpoint.
All right. Great to catch up with you. Thanks, as always, for the time. Congratulations on being our Irish insider. We look forward to having you back.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Can't wait to talk some more Irish.
All right. Roddy Jones, our ACC Network football analyst. Stay tuned when we come back. Packer and Durham, joined by the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference, John Swafford, on the development of this football schedule and now the +1 game and kind of what's in the days ahead as we try and relaunch a fall calendar in the ACC after this.